to our live show. And our today's topic is we're continuing with love and money. And today our topic is save your marriage from your profession, creating a healthy balance between your marriage and your work. Invite somebody, take a friend. If you have a comment that is relevant to what we are discussing today, you can type in. If you have a question also that is relevant to what we are discussing as well, you can also type in on the Facebook, and our guests will attend to the questions as we go along. So invite somebody, share, and thank you for joining us. Today, joining us is Themba. We have had Themba before. Themba is a renowned conference speaker, financial coach, and businessman. And today joining us is Josiane. Josiane is an international certified business and relationship coach. She's an author of 2 books, Save Your Marriage from Your Profession, Create a Healthy Balance Between Your Work and Marriage, and Arise, Dare, and Be More You. And she's also a motivational speaker. Josiane, would you want to say more about yourself to our audience?
Not really, just that I'm passionate about the topic that we have on the table today. I'm also the co-founder of an organization called Christian Women Entrepreneur Network for Africa. And what we do, we encourage women to start and run sustainable business and organization in order to also put food on the table and also support the need of the family and that of the community. So, so this is a topic close to my heart, especially when it relates to women.
Thank you very much, Josiane, for that. We normally start our conversations with Themba telling us more about the latest financial news. Themba, do you have any financial news for our viewers?
Josie, it's an incredible privilege to have you on our show. In fact, your reputation precedes you. I've heard a lot about you from Tafadzwa. I think, I don't remember when I was the last time I dropped it. She says a Siwena meeting, and she always speaks about Siwena and speaks about you, and so I've always wanted to meet you. It's an incredible privilege to have you on this platform, and I'm looking forward to your wisdom. So Tafadzwa, as you said, we normally start with just reminding our viewers and our listeners some of the news that has happened in this particular week. And Tafadzwa, I would want to just touch on 3 pieces of news in this week. So the first piece of news, which is what everyone was talking about during the week, was that a certain credit rating agents called Fitch downgraded the US economy, or the debt issued by the US economy. It was downgraded from being a AAA economy to a AA, plans. What that means in simple terms is that the debt issued by the US government is not as creditworthy as it was before. And it's mainly because of 3 reasons, according to Fitch. Number 1 is the growing debt burden within the US economy. Number 2, it has to do with growing concerns, from a governance point of view. If you follow US politics, you would know that the Republicans and the Democrats are always bickering. And then the third thing has to do with the deteriorating fiscal position. So if you look at the amount of debt in the US economy at the moment, it's about 150% of their GDP, which has been a source of worry to these credit rating agencies. It's not the first time that the US economy has been downgraded. In fact, another credit rating agency called S&P, Standard & Poor, downgraded the US economy in 2011. And when that happened, obviously the markets panicked in 2011, but for this time around, there wasn't, much, panic. Tafadzwa, you recall in our discussions that I have always been concerned about the debt burden in the US. And I predicted that, sometime in the future, it could be that the US will default on its debt. We are not yet there, but that has always been my prediction. And this prediction has now been confirmed by one of the credit rating agencies. The second piece of news that I would want to refer to, Tafadzwa, this has been, it's not something that happened this week, but I think from June right up to now, people have been talking about the El Nino phenomenon. And the El Nino phenomenon is this phenomenon where the waters in the Pacific Oceans start to increase in temperature. And when they do that, it generally results in increasing temperatures and ultimately will result in a drought in some point. So I'm hearing people forecasting, drought in 2023, 2024, whether that will happen or not, we will see. But the reason why I'm raising this is, in business meetings, people are talking about climate change, probably much more than I have heard before. And because of climate change, comes, issues around food security, issues around, food prices and food inflation. Tafadzwa, on this platform, we've predicted that, food inflation will always be stubborn. Whereas inflation is moderating, food inflation will always be stubborn. So let's wait and see. But the El Nino phenomenon, people have been talking, quite a lot about it. The third piece of news, which is South African specific, is, Mr. Ramaphosa had a meeting with business leaders, this week. And in one of the presentations by the business leaders, they drew attention to the fact that unemployment in South Africa can actually reach 38% by 2020, by 2030. Currently, unemployment is very high in South Africa. In fact, South Africa is one of the top 80 nations where unemployment is very high. But the predictions from business leaders is that unless the government acts quickly to resolve issues around energy, issues around lawlessness, and all the other issues that are impacting on growth, then unemployment is here to stay. When I look at these three pieces of news, Tafadzwa, there are three insights that I would want to leave our viewers with. Number one, we are living in a period of great uncertainty. And because it's a period of great uncertainty, please take note of the advice that we have given before. Don't be overly extended in debt. Watch your debt, pay off your debt as soon as possible. The reason why I'm saying so is because we predicted at the beginning of the year that inflation will moderate, and indeed it will moderate. But if you have instances such as the downgrading of the US economy, and you would know in this week that downgrade alone, which was a US happening, resulted in the rand, losing ground. For the past 2 weeks, the rand has been strengthening, but it lost ground as a result of that. And, we're getting close to 19, again. So there is no question in my mind that from an economic point of view, we're living in a period of great uncertainty. And pay off your debt. We may actually see interest rates, have been rising, and people have been expecting that we are at the top of the interest rate cycle. But it may be that, and I'm pretty sure even in the US, things such as mortgages, things such as credit cards, rates are going to increase as a result of, the downgrading of the US economy. The second thing that I would want to leave as an insight is that to the extent possible, just keep cash. I follow one of the greatest investors called Warren Buffett. And when I was looking at Berkshire Hathaway in this week, they've got cash on their balance sheet, to the extent of 150 billion. And they are not doing anything with that cash. They are looking for opportunities. So in this period of great uncertainty, there will be opportunities that will present themselves. And people that have got cash will immediately, take advantage of those opportunities and get assets at very cheap rates. Because, as you would know, Tafadzwa, there are two emotions that govern markets: fear and greed. So when there is great uncertainty, people are fearful. And because they are fearful, Those that have got cash can move in and grab assets. And my advice to people is, keep cash. You may want to invest, in the meantime, in treasuries. I heard Elon Musk putting it on Twitter in this week, Tafadzwa, that, investing in US treasuries is a no-brainer. That was his comment on Twitter. And the reason why he said that is because the treasuries in the US are beginning to go up as a result of that downgrading. So people with money in the US now are, investing in government debt because of the increased, interest rates there. The third thing that I would want to leave as an insight, particularly to parents, I think unemployment is here to stay. Encourage your children to be skilled in skills of the future. Gone are the days when you would expect that your child would immediately get a job after university. I think it's all about equipping them with skills that are relevant for the future. Some of the people that are coming out of universities have got degrees, but industry does not need their skills because, I think what industry is looking for is specialist skills. So it's time that we advise our children to get those specialist skills. Otherwise, you'll sit with children in your home and they won't get jobs. So let me stop there, Tafadzwa, and get into the topic for today.
Thank you very much, Themba. We are being encouraged to keep cash, and also to those with children, to encourage them to pursue specialized skills. As we mentioned earlier, Josiane is an author, and she has written a book, Save Your Marriage from Your Profession. The book is available on Amazon. And also from her, we'll get the contact details later on. Josiane, in her book, Save Your Marriage from Your Profession, she states that, unfortunately, as couples, sometimes because of our ignorance, negligence, and lack of commitment towards our marriage, we open doors for factors such as profession that are meant to help build the marriage to become a hindrance. Our God-given professions could be a source of pitfalls and dangers to our marital unions when unwisely prioritized. Josiane, as a wife and businesswoman, how have you managed to balance work and marriage? And what would you say to a young professional who sees marriage as a hindrance to a career path?
Yeah, Tafadzwa, I would first of all like to applaud you for putting together such session, zooming on to marriage. You know, it's something that we need. We need more of this type of session. Looking at the rate of divorce out there, most of us, we get into marriage, we know little knowledge. You see, I always say that people go to school, obtain master degree, honors, and bachelor for all other things. But this thing that we call marriage, that is so important for our life, because most of us, we get into marriage so young and we are bound to stay into it. But we don't acquire so much knowledge. Society have not given us that culture, that environment where we are being given knowledge to be able to tackle that. So I really applaud this type of session. And it's very important, especially for young people out there. To be forearmed is to be forewarned. So when you already know where you're going into, what you are leading into, even whatever comes to your way, you can easily fight it back. So nowadays, we are facing so much, the rate of divorce is being so elevated, increased, because people don't know how to go about this thing. So thank you very much for such topic and for bringing me on for this specific one. Coming back to your question, how do I balance my life being a career woman and so on? I would say it's not always easy in the African continent, culture or environment. But when you when you know where you're going, it becomes easy. When you sit down and know what is it that you're dealing with, it becomes easy. For me, one of the key elements is is the fact that I know what I stand for. And I will always advise couple that once you get into marriage, it becomes very important to have a vision for your marriage. Once you have the vision, you know what to bring in, what not to bring in out. You know when boundary are being crossed or being dismantled. You have at least a knowledge of all these elements. So the most important thing is to know what you want to achieve in your marriage. And this is not something that you do personally. It's something that you sit with your spouse and come out with a vision. And once that vision is being set down, the element of time, you know, we don't have so much time before us. Time management began too key, because there are certain things that you're not going to entertain because it's not fitting in the picture, it's not fitting in where you're going, on the purpose, the objective that you have for your marriage or for even your family. So we only have 24 hours. It becomes very critical to give priority to what is due. It doesn't mean that priority always have to be given to my marriage. There are times whereby maybe in terms of balance of will, the priority might be mostly given to maybe my work, my profession, based on what the objective that I have at that specific time. So so it becomes very important to first set boundary, and what is it that I have to bring, we have to bring in as married people or not? Is it achieving the vision of the family? And what is it that we really want to achieve at this particular time? And also priority. What is our priority at a specific time? Because it do change based on the season, based on the objective or the particular season. I keep on repeating myself, but mostly I always say that when you value something, you give time to it. And if you value your family, you will find time. You will find time. And also, what is success for you? If success is defined by you being a career woman, okay, so be it. If it's your family, then you have to sit down and prioritize. So it's all about priority, and it's all about having a specific goal, a vision for a specific season. And beyond that, it's also about having a vision for your family. Because when you don't know where you're going, every place look like the place. That's why you see people bringing in stuff in their marriage that do not contribute to the fulfillment of the marriage, because they are not defined. There's no definition of what is it that they want to achieve with that particular, because marriage actually is an institution. So it's an institution, and being an institution, we have to know how to manage it in order for it to work.
Thank you very much. Yes.
Yes, and if you are not mistaken, the question, there were two questions.
Yes, the second part was, I'm sure you've also touched on it. I think I'd said, what would you advise a young professional who thinks marriage is a hindrance to a success career path?
No, for me, I would say no. Both we need at married people. We need work is important in order for us to sustain our marriages. But if we become unhealthy, is a problem. If it's affecting our marriage, it becomes a problem. If through work you can't meet your moral, emotional obligation of your family, it becomes a problem. But now, I would say, if you are not married, it becomes very important for you to even know what is it that you aspire for? What is it that you want to do in future? And once you know that, you also have to know which type of marriage not to get into, and which type of husband or wife not to hook up for. So once that, as I already say, you have to sit down, both of you, and define what is the purpose of this marriage. For certain marriage, they will say, okay, a woman can be a career woman. You have seen cases where maybe a businessman or a prominent person will be applauding maybe a wife and say, no, well done, when she's being applauded out there. But because this is a common purpose, seeing the wife out there excelling is a common purpose. It's not something that you do in isolation. So and that's why I say it depends on what you agree on as a couple. So if your career is one key thing, then so be it. But beyond that, you don't have to neglect the health of your family. You know that you have obligation within that family. And you don't, if your work is going to bring you to the place where you neglect your role, where you how do I even put it, you fail to meet your obligation, it become a problem. So we have to look at that. But it has to get to a place where you sit with your husband or your wife and try to see how. Remember, marriage is not about you, a one person. It's two people becoming one. So it means that there's going to be compromise on one way or the other. So if your career is something that you might have to compromise to achieve the wellness, the goodness of the family, it might happen. But still, if you are engaged with someone that you are in love with and the person is also caring, you will just see how to go about that career, because there are certain things that might not be able, certain career that you might not be able to embrace because it's going to jeopardize the well-being of your family. So you have to be mindful of that. There will be places where you have to really be unselfish.
Thank you very much, Josiane. That's very insightful. You should be prepared to compromise, because if your career does not allow you to be in a particular marriage, or if it doesn't allow you to balance, as Josiane is saying, because marriage is about two people, not yourself. So if you don't have a vision and you're going an objection or an objective, it may be difficult. So be prepared to compromise. Temba T.D. Jakes says the problem of being a father is you can't give hundreds. If I give you time, we do not have money. If I get the money, you don't have me. I am limited. The challenge of being a father is the kids want you, the wife wants it now. If a man is at home all the time, he's a breadwinner, that's a bad sign. I've also heard a speaker say, if you want a husband who gives you time 24/7, get married to an unemployed man. As a husband and businessman, or when you were still in the corporate, how did you balance work and marriage?
So Tafadzwa, I'm learning a lot from Josie. There is something that she said which resonated with me. She said a statement which went something like this: you must know what your marriage stands, for. My interpretation of what she said is that there is a purpose for each marriage, and we must be clear, what that purpose, is. Tafadzwa, you would know, and the reason why it resonated with me, you would know, Tafadzwa, that as a couple, we've always encouraged people to, have a family strategic plan, which basically articulates where they think about what is the purpose of our marriage, where are we going, and everything that we then do in that marriage is informed by what we've agreed and what we agree as the strategic plan, for the family. So I'm actually glad that there are people out there who agree with that idea. So that really resonated with me. And thank you very much, for that point. So Tafadzwa, your question is, how did I balance, the time as a father? Let me just start by saying I've always, looked at marriage as, two people that complement each other. sometimes if you've got people that are competing with each other in a marriage, it becomes very, very difficult. I think there are times when we have to make decisions is we complement each other. You would know the decision that you made in our marriage, Tafadzwa. You chose to stay at home, and then I was the person who went there to work. And that has really helped our marriage. It has, really helped me because I've always felt that I've got support from home. So I didn't have to worry about the kids and what they were doing. And even when I returned home, I just felt that I had that support at work, and it enabled me to even perform much better, at work. So the point that I'm highlighting here, I'm not necessarily advising couple that the one, partner must stay at home and the other one must work. But all I'm advising couples is that let's view marriage as two people complementing one another. I think you used at some point the word sacrifice. In that part of complementing each other, probably the one partner may need to, to sacrifice. But how did I balance, and how do I continue to balance, time between, marriage and work? I think the first thing that I have tried to do, Tafadzwa, and you would attest to this, I always involve you even in my work. There are times when I go on a business trip. You remember the business trip that we went together to Dubai. I was on a business trip, you were on a leisure trip, but we did that trip together. And I think that could be a good idea of just balancing. You may be interested to know, Tafadzwa, that even the hospitality industry has come up with a term called bleisure. Bleisure is basically traveling on business and also traveling on leisure, which is what we did on that, particular, time. So my idea there for couples is in that it's not easy to balance because one is pursuing a career, the other one is pursuing probably money so that the family can be sustainable. But if we can find points of intersection between, our marital pursuits and our work pursuits, and it could be traveling together. It could also be, getting to, participate in areas of common interest. I think those kinds of activities can actually help to, balance. I'm sure you'd know, Tafadzwa, we've got a mutual friend, he's a CEO at one of these JSC listed company. And sometimes he goes on business trips with his family and with his wife, as well, and they travel together. So I think that's one way, of doing that. The other way of doing that is that in our business and in my business as a manager, I used to be a manager, at a bank. In my business, there were times that I had to diarize for my family. And my secretary used to know that those are non-negotiable times. So I would put times in my diary. These could be times such as, the birthday celebration of, our kids, the birthday celebration of our wife. So I think if we could diarize well in advance, activities that have to do with the family, and make sure that even in our negotiations with our line managers, they actually understand, that there is something called work-life balance. And even in corporates, some of the corporates that are run very well, they also insist on work-life balance. And one of the practice that I came up with, Tafadzwa, is that my Friday afternoon was, I would leave work early on a Friday afternoon, and it was for the family. Sunday was for the family. I made a decision when I was working, and even to the, extent possible in business, that, Sunday is family time, non-negotiable. So it did not matter how much time I had, Sunday, Friday afternoons. So I was prepared to go all the way working, during the week. But I had non-negotiable times blocked in my diary. Nobody could, actually get hold of me. And it becomes a question of also setting boundaries, Tafadzwa. I think as a man, even as a busy man, as a business person, you need to set boundaries. Boundaries such as, after 7, guys, you can't reach me. I'm with my wife, I'm with my family. It then becomes a boundary which everyone, understands. So I think it's, in as much as we are pursuing careers, it's very important for the sake of our marriages to set boundaries, because those boundaries are very, very important. We made it a point, Tafadzwa, that to the extent possible would support our kids, with their most important life events. It could be, prize, giving sessions, at school. We made it a point that we would attend. It's all part of balancing, which is very, very important. The last point that I would want to say, Tafadzwa, which is very, very important, and I have to put this point quite delicately, because many people miss the point. One of the reasons why sometimes we can't balance between family and career is because we find ourselves in a rat race. We are in a rat race. We have to survive. So we have, as part of the strategic plan for the family, we have to come up with ways of freeing ourselves from that rat race. Tafadzwa, you would know that we are strong advocates, and as we teach people about finances, we are strong advocates of financial independence. We believe that we must manage our finances in such a way that we get to a point where we are financially independent and we don't worry about money. What that does, Tafadzwa, is that it frees you and liberates you from this rat race that many people find themselves in. And you find yourself with freedom of time. I can tell you, Tafadzwa, I'm running a business. It's not a big business, it's a small business, but I manage my time. If I need to leave work now to attend to family emergencies, I can leave my clients. And I feel that I have gotten to a point where I enjoy time freedom, because I had to make a very painful decision, you would know, Tafadzwa, to leave my job at ABSA and start a business which would afford me, some kind of time freedom. So as we run our families, I think we must have a goal as well to free ourselves from the rat race. I can't imagine that for the length of your working career, you'll be chasing, a job and being in this rat race. How are you going to find time to take care of your wife, to meet the emotional needs of the family and of the wife? So achieving financial independence and, having a plan to liberate yourself from the rat race, I think it could be part of the solution, Tafadzwa. That's all I would say for now.
Thank you, Themba. Free yourself from the rat race. Being an entrepreneur can allow you to create time by time. Maybe since we can't all be entrepreneurs, maybe you need to set boundaries. For example, no phone, no work calls after 8. To just, maybe your PA has to know that. Josiane, in your book, you mentioned that your experience when your husband got a 3-year job, contract overseas, and how it affected your marriage. What are the pitfalls of a long distance relationship, and how can couples manage it effectively? Josiane, I think you're muted.
Oh, yes, sorry for that. I would say one of the key pitfalls will be the culture of singleness that is being activated. As if you are staying apart from your spouse, it's easy that once you are closer, you do things together, you talk most of the time. But when there's a distance that between the two of you, it's easy for each of you not to be involved in the affair of the other person. For me, I would take my case, like there was a time where I would just be planning my own thing here, doing whatever, though I know that I have a husband who is somewhere else, but it become just obvious that I can do on my own. I can make plan, I can organize things around the house on my own. So so if one is not careful, you become you be trapped in independence. You know, marriage is about two people putting head together, but if you find your way alone, you can easily be married but live a single life. So maybe you just come together just to give a report of what is happening, but in the daily, day-to-day activity, there's no that involvement. The other pitfall could be the lack of role model. You know, as in the family, children, most of they need both parents. They need the mother figure, they need the father figure. The father has his own element that he brings in the raising of children. That will be authority, direction, and so on. The mother will come with the kindness, nurturing, and so on. So when one of the parents is not around, it means that there is a void there. And that's where it's become very important for, and Temba raised that element when, for instance, he's busy at work, you are able to fill in the void that he been left. So in certain couple, if you are not aware of this, the children will grow not having those two perspectives of life, because they need that even for their future, for their marriage, at term of reference. They have to be in the house where both of them. But in case where it doesn't happen, the other one who is with the children has to be able to fill out the void. And it comes with mutual communication, lot of work, because as a mother, it becomes difficult for you to really play the role of the father. But even if the father is that side, it has to be conscious of the void that is being left behind and try to fill up one way or the other. The other element is the element of communication. You see, distance somehow bring lot of, and miscommunication also. It can also go a long way to mistrust. You know, when we talk about communication, it involves non-verbal and verbal. But now when there's distance, there's a lot of non-verbal communication that normally carry like 60% of the meaning that is not there. And you have limited time on the phone. You can't take a phone and communicate for so long. There's interferences. But whereas if you are together, hooked up in the room, in the house, in the evening, you find time together, even on the bed. They used to say that the bedroom is the bed of a couple is where a lot of, how do you call it? Lot of gossiping, lot of talk goes on. But you see that you miss that. There's something that you miss, just that intimacy, that closeness. And talking about even childbearing, there are couples that have face issue with childbearing. We know that a woman only ovulate maybe once a month. Why, if the husband is not around and they really want to make a child at that particular time? You see, maybe when the husband come or when the woman come, there's no ovulation, it's not period of ovulation. So it's also going to affect. And sometimes because of work, there will be discussion around, is it the right time? No, you know, you won't be around to help me and this and that. So there is also affect a lot. And literally, this can lead to divorce, because as mistrust and disillusion and lack of satisfaction, and we also have the element of satisfaction when it comes to physical. You know, as we come together as husband and wife, there's that need to physical satisfaction, and when one is not being satisfied here and again, that it can bring out infidelity on the couple, because we don't know how far the other can abstain. So it might open door. And I think even God in his own wisdom have not even made room for couple to be separate for a long period of time, unless maybe one of them is really in the prayer place. So for me, I will always say one of the way to go also around it is just to surrender the relationship to God, because God is the one who marriage is this idea. When it going out of the hand, we have to go back to him. At the place of prayer, there's so many things that can happen. There's even just the spiritual intimacy that can help to fight so many things. Because, you know, when there is so much void, something might come in, and the enemy always operate with void. He come and fill it his own element. So we always have to be at that place of prayer, asking God for strength and for support and for protection also.
Thank you, Josiane, for that reminder. We need to pray for our relationships. Timber, we've had situations where now, because of opportunities in diaspora, sometimes I know we have spoken about having a common vision, but the issues where a couple, maybe the husband sees an opportunity and he wants to pursue, but the wife, or either way, they believe that maybe in their original country, that's where they're supposed maybe to be, or maybe they see opportunities in their original country, but maybe the other person is seeing an opportunity overseas. What would you advise? Like, how can people reconcile in such a situation, if at all people can reconcile? Because there are many issues where maybe a husband ends up just going overseas, leaving the wife, or the wife eventually just goes because there's a disagreement and because they can't see the same opportunities and how it will benefit the family.
Thanks, Tafadzwa. Before I answer your question, I must just be honest with you. I've never been involved in a long distance relationship. So part of what I'm talking about is not from personal experience. It's from the experiences of God has been good to me. I've never really been involved in in a long distance relationship. So that's just me. I need to to put it out there. But Tafadzwa, you mentioned the point of a common vision, which is very, very important. Everything that we do must be because of a common vision. I was reading about divorce statistics, Tafadzwa, the other day. And do you know what they say? These divorce statistics are coming from divorce lawyers. And they're actually telling us that in the life of a marriage, the most risky years where people are likely to divorce is year 1 and 2, and years 7 and 8. So those are the riskiest years of the marriage. So I must just point out that I don't recommend that couples stay apart in year 1 and in year 2, because those are risky years. People are still getting to know each other. And in most cases where people have started off from a point of a long distance relationship, those kinds of marriages do not last for a long time. So my advice to couples is that in that year where you are getting to know each other, you're starting a family, try to sacrifice as much as possible. Statistics are telling us that year 1 and year 2 are the riskiest of years. Then year 7 and 8, I think the lawyers attributed that to routine. Sometimes couples get into a routine and they get bored with each other. And therefore, because they are bored with each other, it's also a risky year. So point number 1, Tafadzwa, in year 1 and 2, let the other couple sacrifice. Even if you've got a vision to go elsewhere, those are normally risky years. And then, there are times, where the marriage is stable, where we can then pursue. Advice number 2, the couple that is away should always do a diagnostic of, the state of intimacy in the marriage. If it's turning out that the marriage is having disastrous consequences, in other words, you are not in touch with your wife from an intimacy point of view, you are no longer communicating, those are red flags. Then you may need to reverse the decision, because we must always prioritize our marriages. I have had friends, Tafadzwa, and one of our best friends, I will not mention his name, but he got a job in Nigeria, from Zimbabwe, and he left his family in Zimbabwe. He was doing well career-wise, but it got to a stage where the wife was not happy. The kids, felt distant from the father. And then he was bold enough after a year to reverse the decision. So if it happens that you are away from your partner for some time, be bold to reverse the decision for the sake of your family. We also have got another mutual friend, Tafadzwa. The wife went to Canada, left the husband in South Africa. And then it turned out that, from an intimacy point of view, it was not working. He had to resign his job as a partner in Johannesburg. He was doing very well career-wise, but for the sake of his marriage, he actually made the decision to go to Canada and join his wife. I always like bold couples that sacrifice for the sake of their marriages. So to the extent to which you do a diagnostic and you actually see, you can always tell, Tafadzwa, that things are not at the level that they used to be. You can always tell that I'm struggling, I'm being tempted where I am. I think when you get into that territory, be bold to take the decision for the sake of your family. It cannot be always about money. It cannot always be about career. Sometimes we have to, take these tough decisions, all the time. But Tafadzwa, I've been away from home, as part of my business travels, and probably I can approach this thing about long distance, relationships from, the extended periods that I have been away, from home. But there are three things that I have always tried to do, Tafadzwa. The first thing that I always do, and you may not be aware of this, Tafadzwa, I do presentations quite a lot, in my line of work, but I've put my wife as a screensaver. So sometimes before I even flight the slides themselves, then the picture of Tafadzwa, appears on the screen. And then everyone in the room says, "Oh, you are married." And then I said, "No, it was just, I'm playing around with technology." But at least everyone in the room, knows that I'm married. So I always make it a point. Then the conversation from there on is, so do you have kids? What about your wife? I always make a statement, even wherever I am, that I'm married. Whether I make that statement directly or I make it, indirectly, doesn't matter. But what it does, Tafadzwa, saving my wife as a screensaver on my computer, is that it reminds me all the time that I am married. Even when I am away from home, there are always reminders, and even in the conversations that I have with business associates, it's conversations around my wife because they have seen a picture, somewhere. The second idea that I would want to put, in long distance relationship, where it's necessary, it's part of the plan, is that technology has enabled us to do, WhatsApp video calls. Technology has enabled us, Tafadzwa, to even do Zoom calls. And I've always found, technology to be useful, even in helping us to connect with our families, however distant, they may be. So sometimes I just send a voice note to my wife, she sends a voice note to me, even when I'm far. That I have found to be useful in terms of maintaining that connection, as well. And then Josiane, also spoke about, praying together. So sometimes we may be distant, but I have found that when we are connected spiritually and when we are praying together, doesn't matter, what distance is involved, it keeps the couples, the couple together. And those would be my recommendations, Tafadzwa, as far as, maintaining the bond is concerned, even though couples may be
Thank you very much, Temba, for that. Find something to remind you about your partner, whether it's a wife or husband. Talk about your wife or your husband. Just find a way to put them in the sentence somewhere in the discussion, so that people know your status. Because sometimes when you're away, there's temptation of activating synchronous, which Josiane mentioned. So yes, a long distance can also be managed. Most couples have challenges with their finances, and we know that finances has been one reason why people have divorced or are divorcing. Josiane, what would be some of women's bad financial habits in a marriage? Maybe that causes conflict, and how can they be managed?
Answering that question, I will go back to the initial point that I have here in terms of vision. As much as we have vision as a couple, there should be also vision with regard to finance. I think Temba may talk a little bit about it, and so when once it's handled financially, personally, or it's not it's not a common decision, it become a problem. But we are human beings, we come in on as an individual. But for women, what I've noticed in the community where I am is the element of greediness. You see, it's like all for me. Even when a woman, I don't know if it's a culture in Africa, even when a woman works, she just wants to, her money become hers. It's like, okay, no, in many families, I don't know if you see the women, man, there are some women, no, they don't want to give as much as a part of what they have earned. It's like, this is my money. And when it comes to other needs of the family, they will go back to the men. And most men are being frustrated. So the element of saying my, it shouldn't be even a language that have to be used in a family. So greediness is a huge problem. You see, and there are cases where women will divert money toward her direction, toward her family, without even men knowing. And the other thing is also hiding information. We have seen it all. There are couples where maybe a woman is earning an amount, but the one that is being put on the table is not that. So much information is being hidden. You even say women doing, how do you call it, Stockvel. This is thing that I see in my community. You hear the woman say, my husband do not know about this. I don't want him to know. And she's doing this for months and months, and even here, years, and the husband is not aware of this. Imagine if you are a husband of such woman, the day you discover, that would be like betrayal. That would bring mistrust on the table. So hiding information and also spending so much money on selfish desire. It's just you. You're not looking at the well-being of the family. It's just about you. Your well-being is more important. And we also have cases where, yes, I will just talk about hidden information, because this brings so much other thing. We see women being how do I say, being involved even in a relationship, not basically the wrong one. It could be friends that maybe the husband is not undoing, but because of this, there are money that will get out of the house without the knowledge of the husband. So when we begin to hide things as a married person, it brings a big luggage that, if not controlled, it can bring mistrust. It can bring lot of so much other element that will negative element that will really affect the family. So I always advise people, when you get involved in a relationship, sit together and discuss about the salary. How much are we earning? How do we allocate this fund? Whatever come additional, just talk about it, even in terms of need. Sometimes we think that if we give the information to our partner, it's maybe going to use that against us. Actually, it's for the benefit of the family. Because you will go out there, they might, I've seen it myself, there have been cases where maybe I do something without telling my husband, where that if I've told him, he would have given me another perspective of that spending. It's only when I get I get trapped that I come back to him and say, hey, Annie, look at this situation. And I know the reason why we don't even disclose it, because we already know that something is fishy. So we women, we really have to look up to this habit that sometimes intoxicate the marriage.
Yes, I agree with you. I've even heard that when people are being cancelled, that as a woman or as a wife, you must have somewhere where you keep your money where your husband doesn't know for emergency. So as you say, it may actually lead to mistrust if someone realizes or discovers that there's some information that's hidden from them. So women out there, let's be transparent even with the stokvels. As much as we want to do it to build the family. And, you know, sometimes some women also do it because they're not getting money from their husbands. So they have the secret accounts because the husband is not giving the money.
Means that there's already something, a foundation that is not well and that is not good. So the problem is not the act itself. What brought them to that place where now they have to be hidden agenda? So at some time we need to stop, pause, and ask ourselves, do we have to continue like this? Because starting with hiding income and so on, it will be built up and become something else. And the enemy will take advantage of that. So wherever there is that darkness, because this is darkness, and he brings lies, he brings so many other things that if we don't control, it's going to affect the wellness of the family. So when we start seeing things like that, it's red light. We might entertain it, but sometimes we need to pause and ask ourselves, should this happen? Is it something that we need to entertain?
Thank you very much, Josiane, for highlighting that, because they say you need to keep on lying to maintain a lie. So if the foundation is right, there is no need to lie or to hide some money from each other. Timber, on the same note on financial management in the marriage, what are some of the men's bad financial habits and how can we manage them?
I don't have a long list like Josie here, but being broke is a very bad financial habit for a man. A man mustn't be broke. That's all I can say, Tafadzwa. And I'm being serious here. You know, the reason why I'm being serious is that sometimes a disaster happens in the family. There is a funeral that we have to attend, and then the man says, I used all the money, there is nothing. I think, you know, there was a survey that was done on bad financial habits by men, and 83% of the women actually came out and say, I hate it when we have to rely on family or friends for money. We have to borrow from friends because we are broke in the family. So I would advise men out there to maintain an emergency account. You don't touch that money. It's available for emergencies so that you can make a plan when there is no money in the house. Because if we are broke, that's why you see, Tafadzwa, they could be loved. But sometimes it's always a challenge when we are, you know, perennially broke in the family. So let's make a plan. I think let's budget, you know, our finances very well, and let's maintain an emergency account. In that survey that I referred to, where women were expressing, you know, their views on finance, 87% of the women actually said, you know, I hate it when I have to pay for everything. You know, there are some men who are lazy and they just allow the women to pay for everything. it's a bad financial habit. I know we are living in a period where women are being empowered, and sometimes women earn more than men in certain, instances, but there is always the expectation that men should provide for the family. And if a man allows the woman to pay for everything and they are lazy, those kinds of marriages do not last, for a very long time. Another bad financial habit, Tafadzwa, and this came out from women's mouth. It's a situation where the man is comfortable staying in the family, in the parents' house as a result, because they need to save money. Women don't find that arrangement, comfortable. And so, I'm just saying this to men because sometimes we may be under pressure and we don't realize how important that kind of independence is for women. When a man is separated from their family and they are making as a plan, I think most women would actually enjoy it when we are free from family influences. We are not relying on our parents, but we are out there on our own and we are making it out there in the world instead of being sustained by the family. So that's a bad financial habit, there. Related to that, Tafadzwa, sometimes men come from, families where they have to support their own, siblings. And sometimes if we are not transparent in terms of where the money is going, so some men are not transparent, and, the women then finds out that, the man has been spending money paying for this bill for the family, this bill for their siblings, and that was not transparently, discussed. That could be something that is a bad financial habit, and sometimes it kills, the marriage. So again, transparency and coming out clear and say, I've got these commitments. Would you be comfortable if we continue paying for this bill? Because I find sometimes that men don't think that their women can be understanding, of the commitments that they already have. So just having a transparent discussion about it. But Tafadzwa, as I conclude, being broke is a very bad financial habit.
Thank you very much. I agree with you there that being broke, I think being around a man who is broke is, I don't think it's a good feeling for any woman, but yeah. What would be your concluding remarks, Josiane, and would you tell our viewers where they can find you?
For me, I would say it's as much as we need money to sustain our family, that same money that we need shouldn't be the element that destroy the structure of the family. You know what would serve a money, what would serve your money if you go out there, you gather all the money of the earth, because you doing it, you're looking for that money because you want to take care of your family, and you turn back, you don't even see the family you wanted to take care of, or you don't see your children, you see a broken family. What would be the use of your money? So and there are cases, there are so many cases in Africa around us where the man is successful, or a woman when it comes to career, but when you look at the children. So we have to go back and define what is it that we want to accomplish, especially when we come together as husband and wife with regard to the children. If it's our priority, we should do whatever. If work is that element that will come and prevent us to get to the purpose that we have for our family, some work we have to just leave them out. If it's yes, because at the end of the day, our money and success depend on what our spouse and children say about us. So they are the first barometer. If you have all the money of the earth and you don't have a family to show for, what is the need? So we need to really be knowledgeable about it, and also know that this thing that we call work can sometimes come and be that element that can frustrate our marriage. Yeah, I know the Bible say what God has put together, no one put asunder. Sometimes we think that asunder is a third party, but it could be just those elements like work that come in between you and your spouse, and that also that is also extended to even your children, that at the end of the day, there's no satisfaction nowhere. So we have to be aware of these things and really open our even before. Yes, sometimes we have no choice, like Temba say, we need to earn a living, but we have to be aware of the danger of this. And when we are aware, we know how to fight it. We know what structure to put in place in order to navigate through these challenges. But when you are not even aware, it becomes a problem. Ignorance, it becomes an issue. So let us be aware of this thing that can affect the way we respond to our spouse, the way we respond to, we fulfill our obligation toward them, and try to find way to really bring out a well-structured family where everyone and the environment promote healthy, I don't know, all of us meeting our needs, where we are able to meet the need of one or the other. Okay, with regard to my book, you can have it on Amazon, or you can also have it from my website. You can buy it online on my website. It's www.coachdivajosie.com. So that's my my website. You can buy it directly there. You can also connect with me on my Facebook page. YouTube is Coach Diva Josie. So just like the page, subscribe. And also you can contact me directly, 072-3536-880. You can also have my contact detail on my different pages. Thank you very much for this opportunity. Thank you, Temba, for all the perspective that you brought forward with regard to this term. You were just like all the example, and I learned so many things today. Thank you very much for all the wisdom shared.
Thank you very much, Josiane. We can get in touch with Josiane on the details that she has shared there. Temba, what would be your closing remarks?
I learned quite a lot from Josie. Thank you so much. I think the one point that has been imprinted on my heart: know what you stand for as a couple. It's a very important point that came out quite clearly, and I really resonated with that point. Marriages are there for a purpose. God brings two people together, for a purpose, and so thank you so much for that point. The other thing, and I got this impression in my heart as Josie was speaking, and I could sense the passion, from her voice and from how she presented herself. I got the impression, Tafadzwa, that marriages are under siege, and that the family structure as we know it is also under siege. And therefore, it's very important that we continually remind, particularly young people, that marriage is a lot of work. And I don't think that sometimes we communicate that quite sufficiently. And so when I hear, people like Josie, we have written books as well, I begin to realize the reality that says marriages are under siege. In fact, even if I project 20 years to come, 50 years to come, I think the family as we know it now, will not be, the kind of family that we grew up in. And so it's very important that we continue to stand for family values. We continue to stand for biblical values, even as far as marriages, are concerned. So I leave today's discussions, today's panel discussion, with quite some determination to continue to, mentor young people, and to continue to say some of the things and the wisdom that we've been sharing with each other. Because at the end of the day, marriages are under siege, because of the reality that we are operating, under. And then my last message, Tafadzwa, it's never a good thing for men to be broke. And I hope that message comes out quite clearly. The reason for that, Tafadzwa, is, I know of situations where, people have had to give up because the money was not there. And even if the love is there, but the money is not there, it's a problem. So if we could plan as much as possible, that would be great. If anyone wants to get in touch with me, I haven't written a book like yourself, Tafadzwa and Josie. So I feel like I'm the odd one out there. I don't have a book to refer people to. So you guys are streets ahead of me.
You yourself, you're a book on the move yourself.
Oh, I'm a book on the move. That's very comforting, Josie. That's very comforting. You had to come up with that to comfort me. But I'm challenged. I'm really challenged. I should write a book and publish a book. You guys, I always honor, the fact that you've been disciplined to put all your wisdom in a book. But the easiest way to get hold of me is on LinkedIn. If you can just type in Temba Duplex Mazibuko, you will get hold of me and you can communicate with me via LinkedIn. I've got a website, www.duplexinstitute.com. Thank you so much, Tafadzwa, for putting this thing, together and for inviting Josie. I really enjoyed today's discussion.
Me too.
Thank you very much for everyone who followed. We really appreciate your support. You can share the video even after. You can tag a friend if you think there's somebody who can find value in what we're discussing. You're allowed to share the